Chelsea made it three Premier League wins in a row, scoring twice in the last 10 minutes to complete a dramatic turnaround and seal a 3-2 victory at Nottingham Forest on Saturday. It was also our first 3 points away from Stamford Bridge since mid February when we beat Crystal Palace 3-1 at Selhurst Park, in a game where we also scored two late goals. With this win, a top six finish is very much on for Chelsea. With two games to go, we are level on points with Newcastle United, who currently occupy the second Europa League place thanks to a better goal difference. The Magpies have two away games to end the season at Old Trafford against Manchester United on Wednesday and against Brentford on the final day of the campaign on Sunday. With Luton losing at West Ham earlier in the day, the Forest fans knew that survival for another season in the top flight was all but secured and created a real party atmosphere at the City ground. They now have the straightforward task of avoiding a heavy defeat in their last game at Burnley. There's a lot to break down here, so let's take a look at how the game panned out. Our resurgence in the past couple of weeks has been down to a tactical switch by Mauricio Pochettino, who chose to invert Marc Cucurella into midfield in the second half at Villa Park with the Blues 2-0 down. It is a move that has brought out the best in a lot of players individually, whilst also giving the team much more fluidity and structure going forward. Going into the match against Forest, we had scored 9 and conceded none in the 2.5 games since the tweak to Cucurella's position. Unsurprisingly, Pochettino named an unchanged lineup to the one that smashed West Ham United 5-0 last weekend. Nuno Espirito Santo, however, came up with a different game plan to Villa, Spurs, and West Ham, all teams that play in a back four. In all these matches, we were successful in creating overloads while attacking, both centrally and in the wide areas. The Forest manager made one change to the team that beat Sheffield United at Bramall Lane in game week 36, dropping Anthony Elanga to the bench and playing the extra centre back in Musa Niakate. This change saw them go from a 4-2-3-1 to what was effectively a lopsided 5-3-2. With Chelsea looking to attack in a 3-2-5 shape, Forest had a defender to cover every single one of the five attacking players. Cucurella doesn't offer a lot going forward as a left back, and hence the home side went without a traditional winger on that side. Instead, when the Chelsea man inverted into midfield, he was tailed by Chris Wood. On the other side, Trevor Chalobah isn't a marauding fullback either, and this allowed Callum Hudson-Odoi to stay high up the pitch. Look at the former Chelsea man's average position in this match. The winger was a ready out ball whenever Forest won possession back and looked to hit on the counter. Cole Palmer, our most influential player by far this season, was finding it hard to collect the ball in dangerous areas. He often drifted up wide to the left, into the space behind Hudson Odoi, to try and influence the game. Take a look at his touch map in the first half, and notice how he didn't have a kick in and around the Forest penalty box. Chelsea here are shooting from right to left. Forest, for most parts in the first half, were extremely well drilled and disciplined, and always had a spare man in defense to back up their man marking. For example, in this instance, Palmer drifts wide and draws out Danilo from midfield. Caicedo runs into the space vacated, but is pursued diligently by Morgan Gibbs White. The ball is played centrally to Cucurella, who receives with his back to goal and has Ryan Yates breathing down his neck. When Gallagher drops into the resultant space, Willie Bolly steps out with him. Despite this, however, we found a way through as early as the 8th minute. Noni Madueke drifts in field and engages Danilo, while Yates has his eye on Conor Gallagher. Notice the Forest midfielder pointing to Bolly to step up to Palmer, who is in space. The centre back stays back though, and Yates is too late to come across by the time Thiago Silva finds the Chelsea Player of the Year between the lines. Palmer looks up and plays an exquisite through ball inside Gonzalo Montiel to Mikhailo Mudryk. With Bolly having one eye on Gallagher, the gap between the fullback and the centre half is huge. Mudryk takes a touch past the backtracking Bolly before finishing extremely well into the far corner. Despite Forest's resolute organisation, the only goal seemed like the gateway to another comfortable win, especially considering our recent form and level of confidence. We created another decent opening just minutes later, as Niakate here follows Palmer right up to the halfway line. Jackson drops into the space vacated and receives the ball from Madueke. Danilo is right on his heels, but the Senegalese striker outpaces and outmuscles the Brazilian midfielder to get to the byline. With three bodies to hit in the box, his cutback is just behind Madueke. The Forest equalizer came on 16 minutes, and from Chelsea's point of view, it was an awful goal to concede. Gibbs White floats in a free kick, and Bolly completely loses his marker in Jackson to head home a deflected effort from close range. The striker's moment of laziness is unforgivable, but questions also need to be asked of George Petrovic, who chose not to come and collect the delivery that was headed by Bolly from inside the 6 yard box. There were two more notable openings that we created before the interval. Here, once again, Niakate follows Palmer well into the Chelsea half, and Danilo thereby drops in as the third centre back. This leaves Caicedo in space to receive, and the midfielder tries to play Jackson through, but the ball unfortunately hits the striker on the heel and bounces away. A few minutes later, the Ecuadorian intercepts a loose ball and finds Palmer. The Englishman unerringly slips it through to Jackson, who gets his shot away but is thwarted well by an onrushing Matt Sells. For most of the first half, though, we struggled to break through. Look at how tight the spaces are here, as Thiago Silva looks for a line breaking pass. Caicedo did try and push slightly further forward to make an extra body in the attacking areas, but Gibbs White was staying as close to him as possible. Forest always looked dangerous in transition, as they had their three forward players ready to break whenever there was a turnover in midfield. The ball out to the left to Hudson Odoi was one that was always on. Here, a Chelsea corner is booted away in that direction, and the winger is first to it, covering significant distance with the ball before being fouled by Gallagher. We came out in the second half with Cucurella reverting to a more conventional left back role, and Gallagher dropping alongside Caicedo in midfield. With Forest's lack of protection down their right hand side, the idea was to try and create numerical advantages in that area of the pitch. Here, with Palmer, Cucurella, and Mudryk in attacking areas, both Yates and Gibbs White have been drawn across to support Montiel. This leaves Caicedo completely free in the middle. Palmer plays the ball to him before continuing his run into the box untracked. Caicedo plays a brilliant chipped ball back to his teammate, but our top scorer shanks his effort wide. Forest then had their best set of chances of the game. Montiel's cross from the right finds Danilo completely unmarked in the box. The midfielder's header is mistimed and heading well off target, but it hits Benoit Badiashile and breaks to Hudson Odoi, who stands up an inviting cross to the back stick. Gibbs White hits the post with a header, before Chris Wood puts the rebound over the bar. On both occasions, it was probably easier to score than to miss. Pochettino then made a double change, bringing on Christopher Nkunku and Malo Gusto for Madueke and Badiashile respectively. This saw Shalaba move to centre back, with Gusto now offering a legitimate threat on the right hand side. Cucurella, who as previously mentioned doesn't offer too much of a threat going forward in wide areas, now stayed back to form the back three during build up. With Nkunku playing more centrally, Palmer moved to the right, looking to move inside to create space for Gusto to bomb forward. This, however, did amplify the threat posed by Hudson Odoi down that side, and Forest were looking to get him 1 versus 1 with his fullback at every possible opportunity. Here, with Gusto inside the Forest penalty box during a Chelsea attack, a turnover leads to a booted clearance that finds Hudson Odoi in acres of space. One on one with Shaloba, the Cobham graduate cuts inside and sees his deflected effort come back off the bar. The warning signs were there, and just 3 minutes after this, Forest took the lead. We lost three individual battles in the build up. Sells goes long to Ola Aina, now playing on the right after the introduction of Harry Toffolo. The defender wins the header ahead of Raheem Sterling, and Gibbs White gets in ahead of Caicedo to poke the ball forward to substitute Elanga, who holds off Cucurella to touch it back to his teammate. Gibbs White plays it wide to Hudson Odoi, who is now one on one with Gusto. The winger does the same thing he did before, cutting inside and getting a shot away. This time, he finds the bottom corner. 5 minutes after the goal, Pochettino played the final roll of his dice, bringing on Reece James for Conor Gallagher, with the club captain making his first appearance since December. This move sees Gusto advancing to the right wing, and Palmer and Nkunku almost playing as two number 10s behind Jackson. It was a clear sign of going all out attack. A minute later, we were level. With the Forest midfield pinned back by the presence of Palmer and Nkunku, Caicedo finds time and space to pick out Sterling, who had come on for Mudryk just before Forest scored their second. Like Hudson Odoi at the other end, the Chelsea man takes on his fullback in Aina and curls in a beautiful effort into the far post. This is exactly the kind of moment we expect more of from the five-time Premier League winner. We firmly had the bid between our teeth now, and the winner arrived just 2 minutes later. Once again, Caicedo is in acres of space in midfield, with both Gibbs White and Danilo pinned back. Gusto drops short to receive, and both Toffolo and Hudson Odoi are drawn towards him, allowing James to dart into the space in behind. After getting it back from Gusto, Caicedo finds the fullback with a beautifully weighted first time pass. Here is a better angle. James then puts in an inch perfect cross for Jackson to run onto, and the striker buries it for his 14th league goal of the season. Nuno played his final hand by bringing on a second striker in Taiwo Avoni to replace centre back Niakate. Despite balls into the box being a recurring weakness for Chelsea, we were able to navigate the time that remained without any major incidents. We held on for what was our first victory over Forest since their promotion back to the Premier League in 2022. The away fans were raucously vocal in their appreciation at the end of the game, with all the players and the manager acknowledging and celebrating with the travelling support. A sense of feel good has definitely returned to the club over the past few weeks, and with players like James and Nkunku coming back into fitness, the way forward is hopefully up.